Corey, you say that teachers' unions are substantially to blame for public schools staying closed during the pandemic. Why do you say that?
Absolutely. There are 6 rigorous studies on the topic. I did the first one with a co-author named Christos Makridis, and each of these studies found that places that had stronger teachers unions, all else equal, were substantially and statistically less likely to reopen their schools in person. And the reason for this is pretty obvious to me. I don't blame the people in the system. I blame the incentives that are baked into the system itself. Think about it. The private schools are fighting to reopen from the get-go, but you had the public school teachers unions fighting to remain closed. And the main difference there is one of incentives, that one of those sectors receives children's education dollars regardless of whether they even open their doors for business. But it was actually even worse than that with the COVID school closures, because the teachers unions started to understand that they could actually hold children's education hostage, essentially in perpetuity, to secure multiple multi-billion-dollar ransom payments from the federal government. And it actually worked out for them. There's about $190 billion in so-called COVID relief that have been allocated to K-12 education since March of 2020. That's about $3,000 to $4,000 per student, on top of what the government-run schools are already spending of about $16,000 per student per year.
The public schools have the largest population of school children. So it would make sense for them to really think about how soon we should open these schools up. But all of this ransom stuff and holding out for money because teachers, no, the teachers were also concerned about their safety and their health. And let me add this to it also. Yes, it has been said that children didn't contract COVID as much as adults did. But I'm the chair of the Tennessee Black Caucus also. When you take a child, especially in high-risk communities, that may come home with the snivels, he's going home to who we call Big Mama in the Black community, or the grandma, right? Meemaw in other communities. And when he takes those snivels back to his house, it's a great chance that Big Mama might die, who may also be the breadwinner. This thing about opening the schools, let me speak for Tennessee, in my opinion, was purely economics, because you had parents who had to make a decision as to whether or not to stay home with their children or go to work. And when these employers or these business owners were not able to have people working in service and other areas in these jobs or in their places of business, they started screaming bloody murder to the administration and others.
My name is Gutierrez Crosley, Superintendent for Linwood Unified. When we initially shut down, our teachers and our custodians, our nutrition workers, we were out there in our community. We were serving food. We were being visible and visiting homes and doing whatever we could while also respecting the parameters. So for someone to come in and say that teachers or educators were using this for a political agenda, no, that's wrong. We were doing what we thought was right to protect our community.
Help me understand wealth tax and tell me what that has to do with putting the children first, because I want to understand, I just don't.
I can't speak to that wealth tax, but I can speak to what the educators did to support kids, to support families. And during the 2020 pandemic, schools were relied upon for accurate, consistent information, because it was a mess, not only in California, but across the country. The amount of misinformation that was out there was alarming. And you gotta remember, we didn't even have masks back then. You couldn't get them. We had no vaccines. Right. We had no testing. We were doing whatever we could to protect each other and support each other. And it was a failed opportunity of the US to come together as a collective community to support one another. Instead, politics and money divided us. And that's a shame. And the future generations are gonna look back on this, and what are they gonna say about us?
It's not going to be pretty. There are things that can be done about this, but they've got to be done. Do you have a story or a question for me? Click the link in the description and tell me what in the world is going on.